President of our Board of Education, Dr. Carrie Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And thank you to everybody who's joining us today remotely. And thank you to the fabulous team who's here supporting us. And thank you to our interpreter. My name is Dr. Carrie Olson, and I'm the president of the Denver Public Schools Board of Education. I am joined here in person today by Vice President Jennifer Bacon and Superintendent Susana Cordova, who are appropriately standing at least 6 feet away from me. Also joining us remotely today are Treasurer Angela Kobian, Secretary Tay Anderson, Director Scott Balderman, Reverend Bradley Lorvik, and Dr. Barbara O'Brien, as well as several members of the media. We are also inviting any member of the public to join us via Facebook Live and from our official Denver Public Schools Facebook page. You will also be able to see coverage of this on television, online, in print, and through our partnership with local media. We have one videographer here with us today and one photographer. These outlets will be sharing the content with other media outlets so that as many of you as possible can get this information. We are very grateful for your efforts and for your coordination and as to limit the amount of people here today. I would like to start off today by thanking everybody in Team DPS. Your tireless work, your thoughtful consideration of all of our students and families have been so beneficial to us as we navigate these uncharted waters amidst the chaos of COVID-19 that has been thrust upon us. We faced a number of tough circumstances that have led us to make many tough choices for the safety and well-being of our entire Denver Public Schools community. Earlier today, we announced the closure of all Denver Public Schools physical buildings throughout the remainder of the 2019-20 school year. This includes the cancellation and postponement of extracurricular activities and school events, and the postponement especially of our graduation ceremonies, which we know weighs heavily on the class of 2020. We are joining several other front-range districts in this decision to prioritize the health and safety of our students, our staff, our families, and our wider community. I want to express our sympathy and our understanding of what this closure means for so many of the people in our Denver Public Schools community. Our schools are a central part of Denver, and our closing our doors to our students and our teachers and our staff and everybody involved in our school buildings was not an easy choice to make. However, we must act together during this time to ensure social distancing measures and limit the spread of this virus. In our numerous discussions, we found ourselves always coming back to the realization that we must, first and foremost, work together to care for and protect each other. With the transitioning to remote learning next week at the end of our DPS spring break, I know that many of our students will be eager and ready to connect virtually with classmates and teachers and to continue learning as well as gaining some sense of normalcy as we enter into this new territory together. It is my sincere belief that through the challenges we face together, we will make it to the other side of this stronger, more connected, and fully supporting each other. Our teachers, our staff, our entire DPS community are working together to make sure that our students benefit greatly from this time. At this time, I would like to turn the mic over to my fellow board colleague and Vice President, Jennifer Bacon, to share a few words.
Thank you, President Olson, and thank you, Team DPS, for collectively rising up together to meet the unprecedented challenges that we are facing. Over the last several weeks, Denver Public Schools has been preparing to transition to remote learning for an extended period of time. State and local health officials have told us it is likely Denver and the entire state will be managing many more cases of COVID-19 in the upcoming weeks and months. We talked through many options and we discussed the implications of this decision very thoroughly before coming to this incredibly difficult choice. Today is the last day of our extended spring break, but many Team DPS members have been working nonstop over the last several weeks to ensure meals are available to our students and families, to make sure devices and internet connectivity are available to all who need it, and to prepare for the monumental switch to remote learning. Our teams have worked to provide our teachers with the tools and resources they need to connect with students, to give our parents guidance and support for their new roles as co-educators, and so much more. So thank you to Team DPS, which includes all of you, families, parents, students. I'm beyond honored to serve in a district that has prioritized not only the health and safety of our community, but also the continued learning and instruction that our students need. There will be more challenges along the way, but I know that we will work together to problem solve any obstacles that come along. So I'm proud to say that our priorities and values remain the same. Now our tactics are going to shift, and your team is working diligently to be able to best meet the needs equitably and excellently of all of our community. So now I'd like to hand over the conversation to our superintendent, Susana Cordova, to talk a little bit more about what this closure will mean for all of us.
So thank you, Vice President Bacon. Thank you, President Dr. Olson. I want to reiterate and thank all of the members of Team DPS for all of your hard work during this incredibly challenging time. I know that there will be a lot of questions going forward that we'll have to problem solve. I know that it's likely that we'll have some bumps and glitches, especially as we begin our remote learning period, but we are all in this together. And if there's one thing that I've witnessed since the beginning of the COVID-19 health crisis that was thrust upon us, it's that we have a team led by our amazing board of education directors who care about what's doing best for kids. I know that that spirit will carry us through this time, will give us the strength to tackle the many uncertainties that we're facing together. I know that we will get through this together as a team. To our teachers and to our parents, I want you to remember that our goal is to keep our kids learning and growing, not to fill the day with impossible lists of assignments, requirements, and tasks. We know that everyone is adjusting to the stay-at-home order and to our new normal, and we want you to know that all we're asking is for everyone to try their best. To our graduating seniors and their families, one of the hardest things about this choice was to think about the implication for our graduation ceremonies. I want to make sure that we say to all of our kids who are moving on to the next grade that this spring will have opportunities to celebrate you. And for our seniors in particular, we want to make sure that we do everything we can to make this spring special and to reschedule ceremonies for commencements when we're able to have groups convene together. For our students, I know that it can be hard to lose the routine and the structure that school usually gives. We're going to ask everyone to work together to build a new routine at home and try your best to stick with it. But know that when it comes to completing your schoolwork, you're going to know best at your home with your parents, with the people who are helping take care of you, how to set up a schedule that works for you and your family. For all of us, balancing work, family, and school, in many cases, everyone at the same time, under the same roof, means that we need to treat each other with care, with compassion, with patience, and with flexibility. So we're going to ask everyone to extend that grace to each other over the next 2 months and beyond. And finally, we're going to ask everyone to give yourself the chance to take a breath, be patient with yourself, and make sure that you're engaging in your own self-care. Nurturing strong relationships with each other is more important than any stress or anxiety that we might face dealing with our health crisis or with school. So in closing, I'd like to remind everyone that we here in Team DPS are in this together. We're here to help each other along the way. Please don't hesitate to reach out to your teachers, to your school leaders, to me, or to our board of directors. With that, we'd be more than happy to take a few questions if you have them. And I'll just look, I'm monitoring here on Facebook Live also, so I'll look at a few of the questions. So one of the questions that we've heard very frequently is, what about our youngest learners, our students in preschool and early childhood education, our 3 and 4-year-old students? We do want to stress that remote learning for our 3 and 4-year-olds will look different than it looks like for our students in kindergarten through 12th grade. We are not sending our youngest learners home with computers. We want to follow the guidance around limiting screen time for our earliest learners. But we will be sharing videos. We've partnered with Rocky Mountain PBS to make sure that programming is available on television, and then lots of play-based hands-on activities that we'll share with families to engage in with their earliest learners.
Elizabeth Hernandez with the Denver Post.
Hi.
Hi. I am wondering, what is DPS doing to track whether students are logging in and checking in with their teachers? And in the cases that students might not be, what is DPS doing
Yeah.
to make sure students don't fall through the cracks?
Yeah, thank you. It's a really important question. You know, we've been talking with our school teams about working to take attendance daily, not for the purposes of any kind of punitive measures, not for the purposes of, hoping to get perfect attendance, but really to make sure that we're engaged with our students. And when we are not seeing that students are engaged in learning, that we can reach out to have conversations with families about the supports that they need. I've already heard, for example, from families who have shared that a couple of days a week their children aren't at home, they're in the care of grandparents who don't have access to technology. That's perfectly fine. We just want to make sure we know and understand where kids are and work with keeping them engaged. 2 months of school is a long time, and we do want to make sure that we're engaging in meaningful learning activities. And so we'll use this first week of remote learning to really try out how taking attendance works. We know when kids log into our online platforms, and our teachers also have access to a tool called Google Voice, where they can actually call students through their computer, call parents to do a check-in on a regular basis.
We have another one on the line.
Great.
Did you? Erica?
Superintendent Cordova, this is Eric Brennan with the Colorado Sun. I am wondering, will DPS schools be changing their grading policies and practices at all in response to the shift to remote learning and the recognition that that approach may be harder for some students?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we think is very important during this time, nobody owns the responsibility for being in the situation that we're in, and we want to make sure that we are not taking any kind of punitive measures against any of our community. That's our teachers, that's our school leaders, that's our students and their families. We know that there's very different access to technology and to the internet. We've done a tremendous effort to get technology into the hands of our students. Over the past 2 weeks, we've distributed about 37,000 devices to our students. We have about 10,000 more that are coming in over the next couple of weeks that will continue to get out. We have thousands of hotspots that have been ordered, and we've been working with families to get them connected to programs like Internet Essentials, and really want to reiterate, if you have a smartphone that has access to the internet, almost all of the phone companies have allowed smartphones to be used as hotspots, so your computer can connect to the internet directly through your telephone. But even with all that, we know it's going to be really challenging for students to be able to engage in learning in the same way that it would if they were in our buildings. And so we are working on guidelines for assignments and for grading that will look a lot more like pass-fail options as opposed to letter grades.
Anybody else online with verbal questions?
So there are some questions on Facebook Live that I'd be happy to answer if that's okay. So one of the questions that we see here is about what about concurrent enrollment and programs like the Ascent program for seniors. Do want to really reiterate that all of our local higher ed partners have moved their concurrent enrollment classes to their online platforms. And so students who were enrolled in concurrent enrollment will be able to continue their classes for credit, both for high school credit and for college credit. So want to encourage our families to be able to support their students with online concurrent enrollment classes through all of our higher ed partners. So that's something that's really important. We see a couple questions about the SAT also. So for our juniors, in the spring, usually in April, all of our juniors generally take the SAT. The state of Colorado has been working with the College Board around a replacement date for the SAT. So stay tuned. As soon as we have more information about that, we'll make sure that we share that for all of our students.
We have Jennifer Meckles.
Can you hear me? Jennifer Meckles, 9 News.
Hi there.
Hi, Superintendent. I'm just wondering what kind of advice and help you're trying to give teachers figuring this out right now. I guarantee none of them learned anything about this when they were getting their degrees.
Yeah. So really important question. So we really want to stress and reiterate that it's so important that we all take the opportunity to learn along the way as we make this transition. You know, we've been really fortunate to be able to learn from some of our fellow colleagues in the metro area who started remote learning over the past couple of weeks. And the most important thing that we're sharing with people is we need to, all of us, just do our very best effort and understand that everybody's going to have very different circumstances. I've spoken with many teachers who have children of their own, heard stories about kindergarten teachers who are starting a kindergarten class, and their child, who is also a kindergartner, is right there while they're starting their first online introduction to remote learning. And so we understand and we get it. We are trying to be as flexible as possible with our teachers as well. We have done several days of training. All of the classes are available on our remote learning site, and all teachers have access to them at any time. We'll continue to have some live remote learning classes on Monday, right after this weekend, but all of those classes are archived and available for download. We've also got amazing teachers who are doing things like saying, I'm just going to make short little clips that help people understand how do you start a Google Classroom, how do you load kids into it. And those tiny little clips are also being posted that are much shorter than the full class.
We have a question
Mhm.
from Katie Weiss.
Yes, hi, thanks so much for your time. I'm curious, I know some families across the district, learning will be uneven given support that support the students might have at home via family circumstances or the ability of parents to supervise that learning. How is DPS working with families to ensure that every student has a similar learning experience?
Yeah, thank you. Really important question. So we definitely understand that everybody's circumstances are going to be different. You know, for our students, for our teachers, for our school leadership teams, it is going to look different across the district. We're going to do our very best over the next 2 months to make sure that we're supporting students with access and opportunity, including through paper-based options if families don't have the internet until we can get them connected. So that definitely is part of the work that we are undertaking. And then we know that it's going to be really important to advocate and lobby for additional school funding through federal stimulus packages. It is going to be a very different way to engage in learning over the next 2 months. We think it's very critical that we think about how we can accelerate learning next year when we're back in our buildings.
I know one question
Yep.
that's come in is about pay
Yeah.
for our workers.
Great, thank you. So really important question, and want to make sure that we reiterate our commitment to the folks who work with us here in DPS. So for all employees who are salaried, have a regular schedule, regularly scheduled hours, our commitment has been and will continue to be to continue their ongoing pay. That definitely is aligned with the federal coronavirus, I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly, the Federal Coronavirus Relief Act. And so anybody who has regularly scheduled hours and is a regularly scheduled employee of the district with a salary will continue to be paid.
Teacher evaluation.
Yeah, so teacher evaluation. So we have just recently received information from the Colorado Department of Education that does provide some flexibility with with educator evaluations for this year. There's still a lot of questions that we want to work through for our teachers. This is not considered a pause year, but districts do have quite a bit of flexibility. So we've scheduled some conversations both with our HR teams and then next with the Denver Classroom Teachers Association about how we want to approach this.
So we have a question from Melanie.
Yep.
Melanie Asmar with Chalky. I heard you say that more guidance is coming on grading and you might move to a kind of a pass-fail
Yep.
system. Wondering if you can say more about that and especially how it will affect seniors who are hoping to graduate and get all their credits.
Yeah. So definitely want to make sure that we have the teams who are working on that guidance have the opportunity to finish that out. We understand, and I can say from my own personal experience, I go to more than a dozen graduations every graduation season, and at almost every single one, there are kids who are finishing competency-based demonstrations of learning for credit all the way up until the day of graduation. And so we know and understand that this is a really important time in a student's life to be able to demonstrate that they're ready to graduate, and we're not going to let that fall by the wayside. And so we are looking at how we can have guidance that is meaningful, that recognizes the unusual circumstances that students will be learning in, but that does not penalize them or deny them the opportunity to earn the credit that they need to be able to graduate. So we'll have more concrete information on that within the next week.
And we have Jennifer from 9 News.
Here again. What's going to go on at the schools, I guess, now that nobody's going to be using them? I know you guys are doing a deep clean, and I know they're obviously helping with meals, but beyond that, they're just going to sit there closed, I guess?
Yeah, for the most part, our buildings will continue to remain closed. I participated in a call with the superintendents around the state, the governor and Commissioner Katie Anthus today. The governor has indicated that schools can be used under very strict guidelines that would be maintaining efforts at social distancing if there are ways that we need to consider using them. So that is something that we want to look into. There are a lot of questions that we would need to answer before we'd be in a place where we'd be asking staff or students to come back into our buildings.
Susanna, along that line, we've had some questions from people who need to pick things up from school
Yeah.
medication,
Great.
students' belongings, teachers'
Yep.
belongings, and maybe opening food pantries to get food out.
Yep.
If you could talk about that.
So definitely. So none of us knew 3 weeks ago when we announced that we would be going into an extended break that we would be in a position where we would be engaging in remote learning for the remainder of the school year. And so while we did have some opportunities for people to collect belongings, we definitely have heard from families that they didn't pick up all their medicine, they need to get back in, or from teachers who have shared they left their computer, they didn't realize they would need it. They thought they might be able to get back to class in the building now in April. And so if you have a specific circumstance that requires you to collect belongings from inside the building that is urgent and necessary, please work with your school leader to get access to the building. And so we can make special arrangements for that. We're not yet at a place where we're going to be doing classes, convenings, or instruction inside our buildings. But if you need medicine, of course, we want to make sure that you can get that. Great. So we do have board members who are participating in this, and so want to just check and see if there are any board members who are on our Zoom conference line who'd like to make any comments.
Hello, this is Angela Kobian. I represent Southwest Denver on the Denver Board of Education. The only comments that I have are an appreciation for the nimbleness and flexibility of our school administration, your leadership, and also all of our state and local officials. My colleague Brad and I have been really, at Brad's leadership, been communicating regularly with state and local officials in their respective jurisdictions and have found it to be tremendous and a very positive experience. So just an appreciation for everybody's support.
Thank you.
This is Barbara O'Brien, at-large member. Is my voice coming through?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, Susanna, I think what you said about young learners was really important, and I just want to assure parents or grandparents that the relationships you build with young children are really much of the foundation of their whole learning, and to just engage, try not to have too much screen time, and to play with a pot or a pan and get, some dishes out of a drawer, a spoon, anything where you can play together and talk and tell stories will help your children really expand their learning opportunities.
Yeah, very important, very good advice. If you walk into any of our early childhood classrooms, one of the first things you'll see is the playhouse, because we know that children learn best through play. And so pretend, dress up, storytelling, reading books, any of those things are going to go a long way for all of our kids. I did see a comment on Facebook Live from a parent who's just very concerned about their own work hours and how difficult it may be to set up a schedule for work and for learning. And I want to just reiterate, we completely understand that everybody's circumstances are going to be difficult and different. And so our best hope is that we can just stay in communication and make sure that kids have meaningful things to be engaged with along the way. And so if you've got very unique circumstances, let us know. We're more than happy to try to work with you, work with your child's teacher on your own circumstances so that we can support you while we're under the stay-at-home order.
We also
Thank you very much for that, Superintendent. This is Brad Lorvik. I serve the people in Northwest Denver, along with my colleagues on the board serving all of our students. That was one of the two things I did want to make sure to name. In fact, the only reason you didn't see my children on the Zoom with me right now is because I had to lock the door, since I knew. We're all juggling these different pieces together. And so as a parent, speaking to parents across, and family members of all kinds across Denver, just that reminder that this is something we're all leaning into together in different ways. That invitation for us to take a breath and recognize that we're in this together and that DPS really does care about supporting our students' families in this process. And that means a lot to me, that we have that relationship with not just our students, but all of the families.
Yeah, thank you.
And then I know many of us have already received emails and Facebook messages and other pieces, especially for that class of 2020. And I did, of course, we've mentioned it several times, and I think it's worth reiterating again. We get the frustration and the grief that is a part of this. That's real. Those feelings are valid, and we hear your frustration, and we're not going to try to silence your frustration. We're willing to listen and think creatively with you and be present to try to mark special moments with you. That matters, and you matter.
Yeah, I want to give a big shout out to North High School in your district, Reverend Lorvik. They are engaging in an effort to showcase and profile their seniors via social media. I think they've already sent out the link to their families who want to, brag about their seniors, and then they'll be posting that on their social media channels. We're going to steal that idea as well and try to do some shout outs for seniors across the district on the DPS Facebook channels, Twitter and Instagram.
We also have Scott on. I don't think you want to say that. Scott?
Scott, would you like to say a few words?
I can say something quick. My name is Scott Balderman. I'm the District 1 Director for Southeast Denver. And I wanted to do a few more shout outs to the leadership within DPS. So thank you, Dr. Olson. Thank you, Dr. Bacon, Superintendent Cordova, for all the hard work you've done and in your daily Facebook Lives you've been organizing. I think that's been tremendous and very helpful for the families out there and helpful for me as well. So, and thank you to my fellow board colleagues and all the teachers, principals, educators, central office. Thank you for all of your hard work.
Yeah, I do just want to recognize Tay Anderson is not with us today. He's at a town hall for elected officials in his district, and so he sends his regrets, is carrying these same messages into the town hall that he's participating in with other elected officials from his region.
No more questions for the media online.
Did you talk about the school day and how it might look different?
Sure. Let me just say really quickly as we wrap up. I do just want to reiterate what we're asking from our students, from our teachers, from our family, and from all of Team DPS is for everyone to just try their best. The school day will look different, and we understand that. We'd like to encourage families, think about setting up a routine that works for you. When you do communicate with your teacher, our teachers have been reaching out. By the end of Monday, you should have heard from your child's teacher, from somebody from school. If you haven't, let us know. That likely means we don't have a good number for you. But when you do communicate with them, just let them know your circumstances, when your kids are able to get online, if you're doing it remotely via computer, if you have challenges with getting online, what those look like. Our goal is to try to work and support everybody, and knowing that it's going to look different for every family. Great. If there are no other questions, I'll step aside, and we'll see if our president and vice president want to make any last comments.
Just the last comment that Director Bacon and I would like to talk about is sometime in the next week, we will be having a public board meeting just to talk about COVID-19. We are going to address a lot of the comments and questions and concerns that we've been hearing as the board and our superintendent have been doing the 10 a.m. daily Facebook Live updates. And we're going to ask the teams to come and present to us. We've heard concerns around English language learners, around special education, around inequities with technology, around graduations. Of course, I think of all of the students who I know as a former teacher who are graduating this year. There's 7 in particular who I'm holding very dear in my heart. I remember when they came to the United States and didn't speak any English, and now they're fluent, and we're very looking forward to walking across the stage at West Leadership Academy. So I know that pain families are feeling, and the proms, the special time it is to be able to pin corsages on and go to dances. So we are very cognizant of that, and we will be working with our fabulous student voice and leadership team to find solutions to these as we postpone them. But we will be having a board meeting sometime next week, and I just wanted everyone to stay tuned for that time and date, and we'll let you know when that is so that everyone can join in. And I'd just like to, again, to thank the entire team at Denver Public Schools. It's been a pleasure to be able to see our senior leadership team work. I think the best decision Susanna made was several weeks ago when she called me at 8:30 in the morning and asked what I was doing. And I was actually on my way to a school visit, and she said, no, I think all the board members should get down here now and start sitting in on some of these high-level meetings to understand some of the decisions we'd need to be making. And I think that will forever be in my mind one of the moments in my life where I realized the world as I knew it had changed forever. And so it's been a pleasure to be able to see our team respond and bring out questions that I hadn't even thought of. I remember the first time right after this, they said they were already planning to go remote for the end of the year. And this is when I couldn't even imagine going remote for a week. So I just would like to hand it off to Susanna and her team. They've done a fabulous job. And I know Director Bacon would like to say a few words before we end, and thank to all of you who are here today and the entire team DPS.
Thank you. I wanted to close by sharing with our communities that we all know we are in a different and difficult time, and that we are committed to continuing to operate towards our values. We are operating the district right now as if people are still in buildings when it comes to ensuring all of our staff are paid, that all of our children in Denver and families in Denver have access to food. And so these are some actions that we as a governance team have taken on to demonstrate our commitment to serving the community, even though we are in much different and challenging times. So from the board and the governance team, what you will see over the next couple of weeks is a reprioritization of how we operate around academics, in supporting and monitoring our students' activities and success, also preparing not just for the next couple of weeks or months, but thinking about the upcoming school year. You're going to see us reconfigure and reprioritize our budget so that we can again demonstrate what's important to us as a community in which we value that our staff is paid, our students are fed, we can continue to support the whole child, and that we will also be able to provide something fundamental as education to the kids of Denver. So this is also an opportunity for us. Sometimes you find the sparkles at the end of a storm, in the sense that we can explore how do we build community, how do we collaborate across schools, how do we better integrate technology in the delivery of public education. And these are things that your teams here are also monitoring so that we can ensure we do the best job possible to equitably and excellently serve our students. And so that will take our work of being able to hear stories. So one, we can share the creativity that we're hearing from students and families and neighbors, and also so we can hear what is it that we need to be checking in on regularly, and what is it that we need to adjust to better support. So again, we just wanted to share how we are approaching problem solving, what is important to us, as well as what it is that we hope to gain, and what opportunities can we seize from the abundance of knowledge and care of the Denver public school community. And so again, we will be hosting board meetings where we hope to share with you these important pieces of information. Check out our website when we post these meetings. You can find that at www.board.dpsk12.org. You can also find board member contact information. Feel free to reach out to us. You can also email the superintendent. But it is important that we hear from each other and that we lean on each other, and we hope to demonstrate that value as well through the way that we act. So thank you all so much for your patience, your grace, but also thank you for your excellence, and thank you for the love of community. We have an opportunity to really grow, and we're looking forward to doing that together. Thank you.
I'd just like to, I'm just going to add one more thing that I think bears mentioning, is I'd like to thank all of our board colleagues. Everybody has stepped up, all 7 of us, whether it's doing town halls, whether it's reaching out to families or talking with teachers. I really appreciate all of the board colleagues. I know I speak on behalf of Director Bacon as well. I appreciate everybody's willingness to step up at this time. And I think we can't overthank all of our schools, principals, teachers in our traditional schools, in innovation and in charters. Everybody's really stepped up to meet the needs of students. And I know many of my teacher friends have spent sleepless nights worrying about how things will go starting Tuesday. And I just want to thank the entire educational community of Denver Public Schools. And thank you all for being here today.
Okay. All right, let's stop the broadcast. Over to it. Stream. And just end the meeting. Okay, we're off.
Yeah, thank you all for doing this. Woo!
Thank you.
Virtual hugs to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we want to try to get any cool footage in Spanish?
I was any.
Manny, are you still sharing?
I'm still up, so.
Should we, do you want to do it with something brief in Spanish for?